Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. There's a strange thing that happens when you're the person everyone counts on. People start treating your steadiness like a guarantee. They come to you when life gets heavy because you've proven that you know how to handle pressure. After enough time, something shifts. They stop wondering whether the weight is heavy for you too. Not because they don't care, at least not always. Sometimes you've done such a good job convincing everyone that you're fine that they finally believe you. And maybe that's the real problem. Because being strong sounds like a compliment, and in a lot of ways, it is. A dependable person brings relief into a difficult moment. When life gets messy, calmness matters. People need someone they can trust when they don't know what to do. But there's also a cost to always being that person. Most people don't notice the price until they're already exhausted, resentful, emotionally disconnected, and quietly angry at everyone who leans on them. And this is where things get complicated. Strength can become part of your identity in a way that looks healthy from the outside, but slowly breaks you down on the inside. At first, you're just doing what needs to be done. Someone needs help, so you show up. A problem lands in front of you, so you handle it. Life asks for responsibility, and you are the one that answers. Then people get used to that version of you. Eventually, you get used to it too. And see, that's the trap. Over time, being capable stops feeling like something you do and starts feeling like something you have to be. So you hide your exhaustion, swallow your anger, and convince yourself you'll deal with your own needs later. And later becomes the place where your needs go to die. For some people, this starts very early. Maybe you grew up in a home where maturity wasn't optional. Stress filled the house. Tension sat in the room. Adults had emotions they didn't know how to manage. So you learned how to read people before you learned how to relax around them. Some people don't become strong because life inspired them. They become strong because life required it. And there's a difference. When your environment teaches you that falling apart isn't safe, you adapt. You become useful. Your feelings stay contained because someone else's feelings already take up too much space. Needing something feels risky, so you learn to need less. And all I want to be fair here. That version of you may have saved you at one point. It may have helped you survive your family, your childhood, a painful relationship, a divorce, a financial crisis, a loss, or some season of life where nobody was coming to rescue you. So you became the rescue. That's not nothing. But the same thing that helped you survive can also stop you from living honestly. When strength becomes your identity, you don't always know how to put it down. You can be safe in a room and still act like you're in survival mode. Support may be available, but the truth never leaves your mouth. You want someone to care, yet receiving care feels uncomfortable because you're not used to being on that side of it. That's why this isn't as simple as saying, ask for help. For some people, asking feels exposed. It feels like handing someone proof that you're not as capable as they thought you were, even when support is needed. The idea of needing it can feel humiliating. And that's the part we need to look at. A lot of strong people are not afraid of the help itself. They're afraid of what needing help might prove. Maybe people will be disappointed. Maybe no one will show up. Maybe they'll be a burden. Underneath all of that, there's often a quiet belief that love is connected to how easy they are to deal with. So usefulness becomes a hiding place. When people need you, your role is clear. You know exactly where you fit. Their dependence can feel like proof that you matter. But being needed is not the same as being loved well. That sentence might hurt a little, because there are people listening right now that have built entire relationships around being needed. They fix, help, steady the room, absorb pressure, solve problems, and call all of it love. Then one day they look around and realize nobody's doing the same for them. That realization can make you bitter. But before we turn everyone else into a villain, we need to slow down. Yes, some people might be taking advantage of you. Some may love what you provide more than they know how to love you as a person. Others may only call when they need something and disappear when your life gets difficult. It happens. Still, there's another side to this conversation, and it's the side most strong people don't want to hear. If you keep presenting yourself as somebody who never needs anything, people will eventually believe you. That doesn't make them thoughtful. It doesn't mean they should never check in on you. It also doesn't erase the fact that the dynamic may not have appeared out of nowhere. You helped create it. And I know that can sting, but it matters. Blaming everyone else may feel satisfying for a moment, but it won't change the pattern. At some point, you have to ask why the same role keeps finding you in friendships, relationships, family situations, and even at work. Why does carrying more feel so natural to you? Why does "I'm fine" come out before you're even checked whether it's true? Why does asking for help feel more uncomfortable than suffering quietly? Those questions are not meant to shame you. They're meant to wake you up. Sometimes the strong one doesn't only get stuck because people depend on them. They get stuck because being dependent on feels safer than being known. Being known is harder. It means someone sees the part of you that doesn't have an answer. It means your exhaustion, your insecurity, anger, and fear no longer hidden behind competence. For someone who has been rewarded for being easy, that kind of honesty can feel dangerous. A lot of people confuse being easy with being good. They think love means asking for very little. Maturity becomes another word for keeping the peace. Strength gets measured by how privately you can handle the pain. But sometimes what you call maturity is really just emotional disappearance. You keep removing your needs from the room and then wonder why nobody knows that they even exist. That's the part that creates resentment. And resentment matters because it tells you something has been out of balance for a long time. Most people think resentment means someone else failed. Sometimes that's true. It could also mean that you've been abandoning yourself and expecting another person to notice. That's a hard truth. You might be angry that nobody offered help. But did you ask? You might feel hurt that no one checked in. But have you spent years convincing them that you're always okay? And listen, if somebody knows about that, it's definitely me. Those who know me, who always ask how I am, I always answer the same way. I'm absolutely fantastic. Obviously, I'm not always absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'm always absolutely fantastic, but sometimes not as fantastic as other times. You might feel unseen, but have you allowed anyone to see you beyond what you do for them? These questions are uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Without honest answers, the same cycle keeps repeating. You say yes when you mean no. Act calm while quietly building a case against everyone and wait for people to read your mind. And when they don't, it feels like they're the ones betraying you. That is how relationships become full of silent tests. And silent tests are dangerous because the other person doesn't even know they're taking one. You're hoping they notice the exhaustion in your voice, the change in your energy, the distance you've created, or the fact that you've gone quiet. And maybe they should notice. But if your entire personality has been built around "I'm fine," they may not understand how serious it is until you finally explode. And when that explosion happens, it rarely looks clean. It comes out over something small: a dish, a text, a favor, a tone, a changed plan, a comment that landed wrong. And now everybody thinks you're overreacting. But the thing is, you're not reacting to that one moment. You're reacting to every moment before it where you swallowed what you needed and called it patience. That's why emotional honesty has to happen before resentment, because it's your only language. This shows up in romantic relationships all the time. One person becomes the emotional shock absorber. They manage the mood for the house, soften hard conversations, remember what needs attention. And they're the ones that hold the relationship together with effort that, granted, usually goes unseen. And at first, that role may even feel meaningful. It gives a person a purpose. It creates control. It feels good to believe the relationship needs you. But there's a problem with being needed too much. The relationship can become dependent on your willingness to keep sacrificing yourself. Eventually, love starts to feel like use. Maybe your partner didn't mean to use you. Maybe they got comfortable. Maybe you were so good at handling everything that they never learned how hard it was. But intention doesn't erase impact. If a relationship only works when one person disappears, then the relationship doesn't work. It has just enough emotional labor from one side to hide the imbalance. And that cannot last without a cost. Sooner or later, the strong one starts keeping score. They remember the support that they gave and didn't get back. They remember the needs they minimized. Every "don't worry about it" starts to feel like evidence that nobody cared enough to worry. Then the relationship feels unfair. And maybe it is. But fairness doesn't magically appear because you suffered quietly. You have to speak. That's where many strong people struggle. Saying, "I need more," can feel selfish. Admitting hurt can feel dramatic. Telling the truth plainly may feel too harsh. So the message gets softened until the other person barely hears it. Then hints replace clarity. Hope replaces asking. Waiting replaces communication. And we know how I feel about that. After that, anger grows because no one understood a message that was never fully delivered. And listen, I'm not saying every person in your life deserves endless explanation. Some people know exactly what they're doing. Some are selfish. Others will take as much as you allow and still complain when you finally have nothing left to give. People out there like that exist. But that's even more of a reason to be clear. Clarity shows you who you're dealing with. When you tell the truth, healthy people may be surprised, but they'll try to understand you. They may not get it perfectly at first, especially if you've trained them for years to believe that everything is fine. Still, care shows up in the effort to adjust. A person who only likes your usefulness will most likely respond differently. Your boundary will feel like betrayal to them. Your exhaustion will be treated like an inconvenience. The moment you stop being available in the way they preferred, they'll make your honesty about their discomfort. That response gives you all the information you need, and information is valuable. One of the hardest parts about being strong is realizing that not everyone around you loves you the same way. Some people actually love you. Others love access to you. Those are not the same thing. A person can love your advice, stability, money, time, emotional availability, or the ability to fix a crisis. None of that proves they know how to love you as a whole person. And you need to know the difference. If you don't, you'll keep confusing being useful with being valued. And I know this lands differently depending on who's listening. For a lot of men, strength has been taught as silence. Stay steady, handle pressure, solve the problem, keep the complaint to yourself. Don't make your emotions someone else's burden. And to be clear, being steady matters. Nobody wants to build a life with someone who collapses every time life gets difficult. But emotional control and emotional disappearance are not the same thing. A man who never shares what he feels is not automatically strong. Sometimes he's just alone inside himself. And sadly, a lot of men are. The words, "I'm overwhelmed," may feel foreign because nobody gave them that language. Asking for support can feel tied to shame when a man has been taught that needing help makes him less masculine. So, the pressure goes somewhere else. Work becomes the outlet. Distraction becomes the coping mechanism. Stress gets buried until he becomes quieter, more distant, and more numb. And then the people closest to him feel shut out. A partner may say, "You never talk to me." Friends may notice something has changed. His body might start sending signals he keeps ignoring because ignoring signals is part of the training. Eventually, what he calls strength starts looking a lot like isolation. For a lot of women, that role can take another shape. Many become the emotional manager of everyone around them. They hold families together, sense shifts in mood, support friends, carry the mental load at home, succeed at work, and feel guilty for needing a break. The world looks at a capable woman and says, "She's got it." Now, that sounds like praise, but unfortunately, it can become a prison. Because when everyone assumes you've got it, asking for help feels like breaking character. And capable people are often exhausted by the version of themselves everyone keeps applauding. See, this is not a man issue or a woman issue. It's a human issue. Some people were loved for being easy. Others were praised for being mature. Many were rewarded for needing very little. When emotions made the room uncomfortable, they learned to become the person with no visible needs. Then, adulthood arrives and the role continues. But a role is not a life. At some point, you have to ask whether the identity that once protected you is now the reason you feel unseen. Being the strong one can give you a place in people's lives, but it can also stop you from discovering who would love you without constant usefulness. That is scary. I get it. Saying no is hard when people expect yes. Rest can feel uncomfortable when your pride is built around endurance. Asking for help may feel weak if you've spent years proving you can handle things alone. But that fear is exactly where the work is. For the strong one, bravery may not look like pushing through. You already know how to do that. Bravery may look like stopping before you break. It may sound like, "I can't take this on right now." It may begin with words, "I need help," without turning the sentence into an apology. And that may seem simple to someone else, but for the person who has spent years performing, okay, those words can almost feel impossible. Say them anyway. Start small if you have to. Tell someone you're tired. Ask for a minute. Admit that something is heavier than you've been letting on. Those moments are not weakness. That's honesty. And honesty gives love a chance to become real. No one can support the version of you that you keep hidden. People cannot meet needs you refuse to call out. They cannot hold pain you keep pretending isn't there. They cannot love the full version of you if you only introduce them to the part that performs well under pressure. That is where the strong one has to change. You don't have to stop caring, and you don't have to become cold. You don't have to abandon the people you love. But, there's a big but, your own needs can't keep disappearing just to keep everyone else comfortable. Because that's not love. That is self-abandonment. And yes, most people will struggle with the change. If they're used to your constant availability, your limits may feel personal. If they benefit from your silence, your honesty may feel inconvenient. If they have never had to consider your needs before, they may not know what to do when those needs finally enter the room. So give good people time, but don't ignore what their reaction tells you. The people who love you may need to adjust, but they won't punish you for being a human being. The people who only valued your role will make you feel guilty for leaving. And see, that distinction matters. And guilt is something we need to talk about. Strong people often confuse guilt with wrongdoing. They set a boundary and assume the guilt means the boundary was wrong. They say no, feel selfish, and rush to explain themselves. Help is requested, discomfort shows up, and suddenly they want to take the request back before anyone can respond. But guilt doesn't always mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes guilt is just the emotional withdrawal from an old pattern. When you're used to overgiving, healthy giving can feel selfish. After years of constant availability, rest can feel cruel. If swallowing your needs became normal, speaking up may feel dramatic. That doesn't mean you should go backwards. It means your system is adjusting to a new way of living. Let it adjust. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to need support without turning your exhaustion into a character flaw. You are also allowed to stop being the emotional emergency contact for people who never ask how you are or don't care about you. And see, here's the thing. That doesn't make you selfish. It makes you honest. Now, someone listening might be thinking, what if people leave when I stop being the strong one? It's a real fear. But let me ask you something. If someone only stays because you never need anything, what exactly are they staying for? Are they staying for you, or are they staying for the convenience of you? That's what we're thinking about. Love that requires your silence is not love you can safely build a life around. A friendship that only works when you are useful, it's not a real friendship. A relationship where your needs are treated like an interruption is not a partnership. At some point, you have to decide whether you want to be valued for what you carry or known for who you are. And I know being known can feel strange when you've spent most of your life being dependable. You may not even know what you need right away. And that's okay. Start with what you know is truth. Maybe the truth is something simple. I'm tired. Or I don't want to keep being the person who always handles this. Maybe the truth is, I love you, but I'm starting to resent the way this dynamic feels. See, the thing is, you don't need perfect words. You need honest ones. And you need to say them before anger becomes the only way they come out. Because once resentment takes over, it starts rewriting the story. Everyone begins to look selfish. Every request feels like an attack. Small moments become proof that nobody cares. That's what happens when pain sits too long without language. So You give pain language earlier. That's how you protect your relationships from becoming places where silence turns into distance. And yes, telling the truth creates risk. You may find out that some people cannot meet you there. Certain relationships may be more one-sided than you wanted to admit. Some connections might only be alive because you're the one supplying all the effort. And see, that's going to hurt. But it's still better than living inside these assumptions. See, reality gives you information. Assumptions keep you trapped in your head. And the strong one spends far too much time trapped in their head. They imagine how people will react. They predict disappointment. They assume nobody's going to help me. And then they never ask, which means nobody gets a chance to prove them wrong. Now, that might feel like protection, but it also feels like isolation. There is no closeness without some level of risk. If you want to be loved beyond your usefulness, someone has to see beyond your usefulness. That requires access, not access to everything all at once. I'm not saying you need to dump every feeling on every person in your life. Use discernment. Choose people who have earned that level of honesty. But somewhere in your life, someone should know when you are not okay. If nobody knows, that is not strength. That is loneliness. And that's not the life I want for you. I want you to have people you can be real with. People who do not only love your competence, but also have room for your humanity. People who can receive your strength without depending on your silence. That's what a healthy connection should look like. It does not mean everyone carries the same weight all the time. Life doesn't work that way. There will be time when one person needs more support than the other. Then there will be moments where you do have to be strong, steady, responsible, and reliable. And that's part of life. The problem is when the season becomes your entire identity. You were not meant to be the strong one forever. You were meant to be a whole person. And see, whole people need rest. They need help. They need softness. They need spaces where they are not performing competence every second of the day. And that is where healing starts. Not in some dramatic transformation. Not in cutting everyone off. Not in becoming cold and calling it peace. Healing may begin with one honest sentence you have avoided for years. I am not okay. That sentence can change things. It can open a door. It can start a conversation. It can reveal who is capable of meeting you with care and who only knows what to do with you when you are useful. Either way, you get the truth. That is the real cost of always being the strong one. You start losing touch with what is actually happening inside your own life. The weight becomes so familiar that exhaustion starts to feel normal. Support stays as an assumption instead of becoming a real conversation. Some relationships only look mutual because you keep supplying most of the effort. Eventually, one question has to be faced. Is your strength helping your life, or is it quietly consuming it? Once you see that clearly, different choices become possible. The automatic yes starts to slow down. The phone can ring without every crisis becoming your responsibility. Your partner gets the truth before resentment turns silence into distance. Your friends get a chance to care for you instead of only knowing you as the person who shows up for them. That's the goal. Strength should be a part of who you are, not the mask you hide behind. I'm not here to tell you to become weak. I'm not telling you to stop being responsible, abandon people, or turn into someone who only cares about themselves. I'm saying your strength has to include you. If your strength helps everyone else while destroying you, something is wrong. If your strength makes you useful but keeps you lonely, something has to change. And if your strength is the reason nobody knows who you are, then maybe it's not strength anymore. It's self-abandonment. Sometimes the truth has to be sharp enough to cut through the story you keep telling yourself. Some of you are not tired only because life is asking too much. You're tired because you keep giving life permission to take more than you have. That is the part you can change. Start with one boundary. Have one honest conversation. Find the moment where you stop pretending the weight is light when it's crushing you. That's enough to begin. And the people around you may surprise you. Some of them might have wanted to help but didn't know where to enter. Others may have had no idea how much you were carrying because you never let the truth get close enough for them to see it. You may also discover that love was available in places you never allowed yourself to receive it. See, this is where the strong one has to be brave in a new way. For you, bravery may not look like pushing harder. You already know how to push through. The harder thing may be admitting you're done pretending. Letting someone see you without the armor, or saying, I cannot be everything for everyone anymore. That doesn't make you less strong. It makes your strength honest. And honest strength is the only way that can build a life worth living. So if you are the strong one, I want you to really contemplate this. Who you are. Who are you when nobody needs anything from you? Can you rest without guilt? Can you ask for support without having to apologize? Can you let someone love the version of you that doesn't always have the answer? You are more than your usefulness. You are more than what you carry. You are more than the role you learned to play in order to survive. The people who truly love you need to know the person underneath the strength. Not only the helper, not only the fixer, not only the calm one. They need to know the real you. And maybe you need to know that person too. Because no one can love the parts of you that you never let them meet. Stop hiding behind strong. Let strength become something that supports your life instead of something that slowly erases you. And remember this. The goal is not to stop being strong. The goal is to stop using strength as an excuse to suffer quietly. I want you to think about where your strength came from, what it has cost you, and whether it is still serving the life you want to build. Thank you so much for joining me. Each and every one of you mean a lot to me. If you want to learn more about my work, you know where to go. You can visit joeyfrancis.com. That's JOEYFRANCESS.com. And you can buy my books there, send me a message, or reach out if you have a story, a question, or something you want me to talk about in a future episode, or something you just want to talk about with me. I'm open to it. Message me. Let's talk. And I'm going to leave you with this. You don't need to prove how much you can carry. You need to ask why you keep accepting a weight that's breaking you. Until next time.